Good afternoon, Harlem. Good evening, Harlem and Harlems of the world, depending on where you are. I'm Terri Wisdom, and this is Harlem Network News. And as many of you know, Harlem Network News is a platform we started at the onset of COVID, and we are still here. We are really dedicated to assuring that Harlem and the Harlems of the world are informed, engaged, and call to action. And this is more critical than ever at such a time as this. Before I move forward in our show for today, I really want to just pay tribute, salute, and homage. We had one of our grandmothers, our community activists, our business leaders. In fact, she was the first and only Black woman to own what we call, quote, a bodega here in Harlem. But earlier this week, her name, everybody called her Mama Z. She's well known all around Harlem. And her name was Xenia Met. And earlier this week, she was shot and killed in front of her building, which was on Malcolm X Boulevard, also known as Lenox Avenue, between 112th and 113th. And pretty much the situation was she's very active in the community with a lot of the young people. I believe earlier in the day there had been some kind of altercation. She was in her building. She heard more stuff going on downstairs, and she was concerned because she knew her grandson, who was in his 20s, it appeared. She knew he was outside, and she went downstairs to just make sure that her grandson was okay. And she got caught in the crossfire and shot, bullet in the back of the head, and killed. So we just want to salute her. We want to salute National Action Network and Reverend Al Sharpton as, they paid homage to her at the Saturday Action Rally. Her sister, who was a minister, explained what was going on, prayed for her. And then there was a march. For those of you that don't live in New York City or Harlem, there was a march from 145th Street, where the House of Justice, National Action Network News headquarters is, straight on down to 112th and our Malcolm X Boulevard, Lenox Avenue. And then there was a prayer vigil with Reverend Al Sharpton, her sister, her grandson, and some of our public officials. So I just wanted to move forward and say that I know that she was sacrificed for our community, and that we have to rally to stop the gun violence and to stop the cause of the gun violence at such a time as this. So today, which is totally in keeping with this, I have with us a journalist friend of mine that we connected at the Democratic Convention, and we have stayed connected, and that is in the person of Catherine Fleming Bruce, who is right here in South Carolina. Yes, and Catherine is a journalist extraordinaire. She has a YouTube show, but she is also a sister who ran for Senate in 2022, Senator of South Carolina, and she's running again. She's running again in 2026. So that's very, very critical to what is happening on our national scene, and to just the number of Blacks that are in the Senate. We know that there are a lot of decisions being made in our federal government, and we know that the Senate, the Congress, the judicial, and the president all pull that together. So this is very significant. So I want to salute you, Catherine, for standing up, for doing it. And please let us know who you are and whose you are, and what the journey has been to bring you to this moment in time. Thank you so much, Catherine.
Well, thank you for allowing me to be on your platform once again. And making me so welcome every time. So I do appreciate it. And again, my name is Catherine Fleming Bruce. For all of you who haven't seen me before on Terry's show, I live in Columbia, South Carolina. And for many years, I have been involved in journalistic activities, cultural activities, and political activities. So for the journalistic activities, I have a master's in mass communication from the University of South Carolina. I worked at public television in South Carolina, state ETV. And I also produced my own independent works, which I continue to do through my YouTube channel, Catherine Fleming Bruce for United States, here on YouTube. So, and I've also printed articles that have been published in various papers, one of which was commenting on Pope Francis's visit to the United States a number of years ago. Okay. So I republished that article this week upon his death.
Right, and let us give the prayers and condolences to the Pope, and salute all the good things that he did and what he stood for. So
very much so.
And as this.
And recently, our fine brother and pastor, Reverend William Barber, had some comments about Pope Francis, but his comments said, now we have to say, I am Pope Francis.
Okay.
Okay. I'm going to pick up the mantle of his works and his action, and I'm going to carry that work forward. So that, I think, will inform and inspire a lot of people in a time such as this, and in the work that we have to do right now.
Thank you. Thank you for that. And thank you. I'm Terri Wisdom. This is Harlem Network News. For those of you who are just joining, I have with us journalist extraordinaire Catherine Fleming Bruce, who is in and out of South Carolina. And she is running for the second time for Senate in South Carolina. That's huge. And thank you so much, Catherine, for sharing your background. That's very important. And especially here at Harlem Network News, we like people to have the full story, the full information, but we also want to inspire people. You know, if Catherine can do all that, then that inspires others to do it. And obviously, we got to hold the door open. We got to, you know, bring our seats to the table, bring our folding chairs, whatever it happens, but we must be in the building and in the room. So thank you so much, Catherine. If you would just share, you shared a bit about your background, your activism, your journalistic, you know, pursuits, but on a political level, you ran for Senate in 2022.
Yes.
And you're the first person I really know personally to run for Senate, and you're a Black woman running for Senate. So tell us in what inspired you to run for Senate, but maybe the first question is, tell us a little bit about South Carolina. What are the logistics, dimensions? What is South Carolina about? What's happening there? Because that's where you are. Are you born and bred there? What are the issues? What are the concerns? What's going on in South Carolina? Thank you.
Well, I think that South Carolina is looked at by many people as a red state. And when we talk about red states and blue states, the red states are the ones that are mostly Republican, and the blue states are the ones that are mostly Democrat. And we know that's a oversimplification, but that's the reputation that we have. So we have kind of a conservative attitude here. But what I also find is that we have many registered people who have not voted, who are not participating. So for instance, in the 2024 race, nationally, we had some 25, 2,566,000,000 people cast ballots.
Mhm.
But we had 3,300,000 some odd people who are registered.
Okay,
So close to 800,000 people who did not participate in the process at that time. So that's kind of your voting situation. We
okay.
do have a large Black population, and that's one of the reasons why we have been moved to a first in the South position on the presidential ballot series, and then first in the nation. Last year, we became the first state where a primary is held in the primary calendar. So that was an effort to get more African American voices into who would be president, as
Mhm.
well as a way to kind of engage the public more. So
Okay.
that's
Can
a
you,
good bit.
I'm sorry, Catherine, can you break that down a little bit? Because I always want to make sure that our audience is clear.
Mhm.
So you said something about what happened with the primary and why you were engaging. Can you just break that down so we can understand what was done and why it was done? Thank you.
Okay, yes, the presidential primaries have a calendar during the presidential election year. So in 2024, you would have states go in order. So you
Mhm.
have your presidential primary for Democrats,
Okay,
and or that Democrats can vote in. You
okay,
have your presidential primary that Republicans can vote in.
okay,
And so each state will have that primary, and there's usually an order, first, second, third, fourth, between February and say May and June. You
okay,
have all the states host their presidential primary. And
okay,
then in the summer, you'll have your Republican convention, your national
mhm,
convention, your Democratic national convention,
okay,
and then the person who is the nominee, presidential
mhm,
nominee, and vice presidential nominee are
mhm.
announced at that election, at those events.
Okay, okay,
So, yeah, so the Democratic National Committee and the
mhm,
Republican National Committee, they're the
mhm.
organizations that are over this entire, each state has their own Democratic system or Republican Party system, and then you have the national organizations over them. So they
Oh,
meet and have decisions about who's going to be first and so forth. And so
okay,
in last year, the decision was made for South Carolina to move to the front and become the first state in the primary Democratic presidential primary season.
okay, okay, got it. Okay, I always want to make sure. I'm Terri Wisdom. This is Harlem Network News, and we are here to inform, engage, and call to action. So I don't like to leave any stone unturned. I want to make sure that people know what is happening so that they can effectively participate.
Thank
So,
you.
what
Yes.
is the landscape, Catherine Fleming Bruce? What is the landscape of South Carolina look like? Because we know South Carolina's in the South. We
Mhm.
know many things have happened. The Geechee, our history, culture. So much is happening in South Carolina, but a lot of people don't really understand the significance of South Carolina. Maybe you can share some of the cities, some of the significance. That there is a vast population of Black people in South Carolina. What are some of the needs in South Carolina? What are some of the concerns? What is the problem? If you could share, and what's good? Thank you.
Right. Thank you for that question. I'm thinking that if people are aware of certain events, one event that they can think about is the Charleston church shooting, where people were in their church and a young white male came and shot about 9 some odd people. That took place in Charleston.
All right.
And there was a state senator who was among those who was killed. This is
Oh, my
around,
goodness.
this is around 2015. So that actually became a national call for people, again, to look at public violence, violence and gun violence as a public health issue, to look at the issue of race. A lot of policies were impacted. So Charleston is a very impactful place for people to know about. Charleston is also the place where a lot of the nation's slave trade took place. So the ports of Charleston, South Carolina, were the places where a lot of slaves came into America and then were sold throughout the rest of the nation. So we were a place that was first with regard to slavery. We also were a place when slavery ended. We had some of the first representatives, legislators to go to Congress. So we have a number of them who, because of Reconstruction changes that took place, where you had a number of them participating as members of Congress. We also had Penn Center, which was started in Beaufort to educate African Americans who were coming out of the Reconstruction era. And it was also a place where Martin Luther King came to do some of his organizing for the Poor People's Campaign, and one of the last places that he came before he was assassinated. So we have links that connect us to slavery, connect us to Reconstruction, connect us to the Civil Rights Movement, and also connect us to what's happening in the current day with our large population, some 46% African American here. So we are strong in that way, but there's still a lot of poverty, a lot of lack of access to health care, to good paying jobs, to the best education, because some of the schools are receiving more benefit and resources than others.
Like everywhere in the nation.
Yes, absolutely.
There's a dividing line of race, the separate but not equal situation going on, for sure.
Yes, very much so. And so now in our state legislature, we have what's called a supermajority now of Republicans. So a Republican governor. Last year, the supermajority was elected. So you have enough legislators in both the House and the Senate that they can pass whatever they want, if you will. So the folks there who are Black have to, and Democrat, have this fight with things like DEI. That was the most recent fight to ban DEI. They're trying to pass other legislation and trying to overcome the challenges in doing that. So that's kind of the atmosphere that we're in, but we have the hope, because we have those 800 some odd people who are registered to vote but not engaged. So we have the opportunity to re-engage them. And we also have Congressman Clyburn, who many people know around the country. Who's
he's a national figure.
Yes, he's a national figure and our lone Democrat in Congress.
Absolutely. Wow.
So part of the work,
people realize that.
Yes. So part of the work is to send reinforcements to Congress and the U.S. Senate to support his work.
Okay, well, thank you. Thank you for sharing that because, though we are in a era of like communication, across the internet, across television, we are a closer world than we have been in the past. It's not like you physically have to travel to South Carolina to know, but it's important to just highlight some of the cities, some of the incidents, because it triggers something for people. When you said this is where the shooting happened, and at that time, this was like a real revelation
Yeah.
for many reasons, in terms of the gun violence that can happen, in terms of a church being pierced, in terms of racial things happening and violence. So that's significant. The fact that there is a Black congressman that is a Democrat, Clyburn, that people know that name. So this triggers a lot. I mean, the other thing that triggers for me, and I haven't actually been on those islands, but the Geechee Islands and the history and the culture and the festival that happens every year, the Gullah people, these are significant things about South Carolina. So it
Yes.
allows us to know. And then thank you for sharing about the disparities in education, despite the fact that, we are several years out of the separate but not equal legislations, but it still exists. And I'm here to tell you that right here in New York City, in the North, in Central Harlem and many of the districts, we have the same situation. We have the same situation where in Central Harlem, the population of public school children is 99.99% Black and very few whites in our district, and a separate but not equal education is happening. If it was separate and it was equal, we wouldn't even have that conversation, but it's not equal. So these are things that are happening around the country in cities and rural areas. So thank you for giving us Harlem Network News. I'm Terri Wisdom. I'm here with Catherine Fleming Bruce, and thank you for giving us that mosaic. But tell us a bit. Catherine is running for Senate. She ran before, and give us a little background about running for Senate. Okay, and that is to be a senator, not a state senator, but a senator in the federal government. What does that look like? A little bit of public information or public affairs or civic affairs. Every state has two senators. Every state has two senators. I don't care what the population is. It's not based on that. Every state has two senators. So that's very significant in terms of what happened. So what did that Senate race look like last time? Who and what were you up against? And how did you carry that torch? Let us know. Thank you.
The Senate race in 2022 was unique in that 3 Black women were in that race. And again, for these very powerful positions, very few will be willing to take the risk to run, against the incumbent in these races. At the time, the incumbent was Senator Tim Scott, African-American Senate. Many also will probably know his name as well. So there was a woman who was a county Democratic Party chair, and another woman who was a state legislature, and then member of state legislature, and then myself. So I came in last. I didn't come in as early in the race as the other two did. I announced on Martin Luther King Day of 2022. And one thing that we saw was there were not a lot of candidates who were able to raise a lot of money that year in any of our races. And I guess that was after the 2020, people decided to invest in the blue states and not the red. So we didn't raise a lot of money, but when the primary came, I had the highest number of votes of the three. I didn't get past the 50%, but I had the highest number of votes in the primary. And I also had the third highest number of votes of any Democrat who was running in the state primary of June 14th. So there are only two more people who got more votes than I did in that race. So I thought we
Wow.
did pretty well, considering that, you know, we didn't raise a lot of money at the time. So I didn't win the runoff, but I continued to engage and support other members of candidates for Congress, because we needed to change the dynamic and have more Democrats in Congress. So I worked hard. I did shows like this for them, and
Okay,
we had a
wonderful.
group of people I worked with Swing Left. And I also was invited to come down to Georgia to help with Senator Warnock's race.
All right, all right.
Yeah, so
Okay.
we were able to bring 11 people. You know, I put the call out and we were able to bring them all down there, have them work for a weekend. And we worked in one of the most critical counties in Georgia to help push his win forward.
Okay.
So I had the opportunity to go around the state and participate in that way and have a sense of, you know, how much needed to be raised. We have to raise the highest amount of filing fees of any other candidate. So I was able to get that done. And
Okay.
so shortly after that race was over, I knew I wanted to run again in the US Senate race. And so I did a filing so
Okay.
that I would run again.
Okay.
So at this point, I know that the biggest barrier is the financial barrier.
Okay, let's talk about it. And
Yes.
this is Harlem Network News. I'm Terri Wisdom, and we are here speaking with journalist and candidate for senator from South Carolina, and that is in the person of Catherine Fleming Bruce.
Mhm.
And I'm just gonna repeat it. She's running again for senator, United States senator from South Carolina. And she's saying that she's got her filing in. She ran in 2022 and she's running in 2026, is it?
Yes. Running
Okay,
in 2026.
2026. And
Right.
so one of the huge barriers is finance and economics. Okay.
Right.
And
Right.
that's a huge barrier for us, I believe, around the country. That's what we're dealing
Yes.
with. In New York City, just in terms of on a personal level, I actually was at a meeting, National Action Network, yesterday, Saturday,
Mhm.
and you know, the rally that happens every Saturday, the consistency of that. And one of our candidates for mayor, Brad Landers, is also the comptroller for New York City. And
Mhm.
he has stated this before, he stated it again, the numbers have dropped. Basically, the mean income for Blacks in New York City is $18,000. The
Mhm.
mean income for whites is $270,000.
Mm.
You can go, this is documented, the gap is like 15 times. So that really gives you an idea of some of the issues and concerns that we have. And, you know, people are thinking, oh, we're struggling with this and that. But when you look at the numbers and you look at what the gap is, you see what some of the challenges and the impossibilities are. But obviously, we're about making a way out of no way.
Yes.
We're about standing and creating this change. But we've got to really understand what this economic barrier is, and then to really work logistically to figure out how to overcome that. So,
Right.
Senator Catherine Fleming Bruce, I'm going to claim it. What are some of the dynamics in terms of the money that has to be raised to become a senator, and then what you have to do? And I also want you to, before we even go to that, how often does the Senate race happen? Because you ran in 2022, but you're running
Right.
again in 2026. So what are the dynamics here? And will the incumbent, Tim Scott, who is a
No.
black, who,
No, the
what's
incumbent
happening?
in 2022 was Tim Scott. The
Okay,
incumbent
got it.
in 2026 is Lindsey Graham.
Okay, Lindsey Graham. Okay, so we
Yes,
got it. Okay, we got
yes.
it. Okay, so Lindsey Graham is the one who came through
Mhm.
and is the senator. And that's a
Yes,
household name. If you don't know about South Carolina or anything, you've heard the name Lindsey Graham.
yes.
Okay. So, in the span of how the length of the Senate race is, how and why would you be running against Lindsey Graham? How does that work? What's the dynamic?
Well, like you said, every 6 years,
Mm-hmm.
that race comes open.
Mm-hmm.
So, 2022 race was, there's one group of senators whose race is open at that time.
Okay.
And 2026, a different group of
Okay.
senators have their race open.
Okay.
I
Okay.
think I think they're called either seat or class 2 or 3
Okay. Okay.
senators. Yeah.
Okay.
So
So
that's
very,
how it
very
works.
important, you know what I'm saying? Because it's important that people understand what's going on. These are the people that make some determinations for the lives of many people. So we need to understand, and this, we're getting an education here, that there's
Right.
class 1 and 2 senators. And so that's why in 2026, not 2028, you're
Mhm.
going to run against Lindsey Graham.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
So
Absolutely.
what is that? You were getting ready to speak about the economics, but what does that look like in terms of you, a black woman, standing toe to toe, eye to eye, shoulder to shoulder with a Lindsey Graham? How does a Catherine Fleming
That's exactly the way to put it.
how
And
do
I
you
will
do it?
say that in 2022, the average race, some of the other senators around the country, were able to raise, 500,000, 1 million, so forth. And of course, many of them may already be in Congress, which kind of opens a different set of pathways.
Mm-hmm.
In our race in 2022, even the front runner who was a sitting legislator, I think
Mm-hmm.
she was able to raise like 100 some odd thousand.
Okay. Well.
Okay, much, much less. And I
Mm-hmm.
think part of this goes back to 2020 during the Jamie Harrison and Lindsey Graham contest.
Mm-hmm.
Jamie Harrison, I think he raised 130 million.
Okay.
So part of the question was, well, he raised all that and he didn't win. So, we're kind of writing off South Carolina. So the
Mm-hmm.
job of the candidates today is
Mm-hmm.
to rekindle and re-inspire and re-engage donors to say, not only can we win, but we must win,
Mm-hmm.
given what we see in terms of the chaos and the destabilization and so forth. So we have to go out right now. My understanding is Lindsey Graham has about 15 million. So we have to go out there and get donors to commit to an amount that would make us a credible candidate. And
Mm-hmm.
again, it's a challenge for red state candidates.
Mm-hmm.
It's a challenge for female candidates, a
Mm-hmm.
special challenge for Black female candidates.
I got you.
But at the same time, as someone told me, the Democrats can't win without its base, which is
Okay.
Black folks.
Okay.
So we need to show that we're investing in
Mm-hmm.
races conducted by Black folks, women and men, in
Okay.
order to make sure they have the resources to properly represent their
Okay.
community in the fight for these seats. So
Okay.
we have to be ready and willing to
Mhm.
do that legwork and have those conversations with those donors, but also say to the ordinary folks, who are, making, we already talked about the annual
The
amount
wealth
they
gap.
make,
Yeah, the wealth gap.
the
Mhm.
wealth gap, the racial wealth gap. But we have to say, we still need you to invest at
Mhm.
whatever level makes sense for you,
Okay.
because the numbers of people who invest is just as important as the amount.
Okay,
So
gotcha.
we need people to
So
put that
in
$5
in order, just so folks can understand this, because
in.
we're at the beginning, and I think it's great that we're having this conversation now
Mhm.
because it's very important to be ahead of the game,
Yes.
especially when you look at what the odds look like. Right now is 2025. It's April. And I guess the primary date in 2026, when does that come up?
That'll be in June.
In June. Okay.
Mhm.
So, I mean, pretty much you're giving yourself some time. But what is the deciding factor? Is money the deciding factor that gets you on the ballot, or what are the steps that have to happen? People need to understand like what it is.
Okay, in South Carolina, in order to get on the ballot, we will file
Mm.
in March
Okay.
2026.
All right.
So we'll have a date by which, and it'll probably be the end of March, that we will have to file. And we fill out a form saying which party we're filing under.
Mm-hmm.
And so there are 7 or 8 parties that are official. You can file for one of those, or you could
Okay.
run as an independent, which means that you have to do petitions.
Mm-hmm.
But you would have to file by that deadline, and you have to pay the filing fee
Okay.
at that time.
All right.
So, and again, I think it's like $11,000
Okay.
file for US Senate.
Okay. You haven't done, you said you put up to file already, but what's going on in terms of the
Oh,
filing?
that's just, filing at the federal level. That's not
Okay.
filing at the state
Gotcha.
level. So that's a
Gotcha.
good
Gotcha.
question. So
Okay.
no one is able to file until
Mhm.
the filing period in your state opens. Then you
Mhm.
file with your state.
I see.
Yeah, so you're gonna
Okay.
file with your state
Okay.
and pay,
Once
and that's
again,
how
we're
you
getting
get.
our civic lessons, which is
Yes,
important because it
yes,
impacts us. Okay. So
that's how you get on the ballot.
you need $11,000 to even file. Okay.
Yes,
And then
yes.
after that, what are some basics you need to move forward?
Well, right now, we are looking at the first quarter of filing. And this might be the second quarter. I think the first quarter start in January
Mhm.
before I announce. So the second quarter that we're in is July 5th, ends July 15th. So
Mhm.
we want to have a good showing of how
Mhm.
much funds we have raised by July 15th. So my goal
And that's July 15th of what
of
year?
this year,
Of this year,
yeah,
2025.
of this
Gotcha.
year, yeah.
Gotcha. Gotcha.
So we would like to raise $500,000, $500,000
Mhm.
by July 15th.
Okay.
So
Okay.
that would be a goal that would let people know that we have good support, good
Mhm.
strong support,
Mhm.
and that we're able to, buy the ads and the billboards and, get the mailings out and have
Mhm.
a team. So
Okay.
that's I think the minimum that's needed. And I'll say that although last time we raised far less, and in
Okay.
other red states, you're
Mhm.
raising far less.
Mhm.
But I think the closer you get to these goals, the
Mhm.
more people say, okay, that's somebody who is
It's
really,
this is a real and a strong candidate.
yes.
I guess the other thing that comes to mind, do you know right now if there are any other Democrats that are going to come on the ballot and stand toe to toe with Lindsey Graham?
There's one person who
Mhm,
has said that he's gonna, who has kind of put it out there that he's running and he's going
mhm.
around the state,
Okay,
young white male.
okay, gotcha.
And I heard that there might be another white female
Okay,
who
got
might
it.
run.
On the
So
Democratic ticket. Okay,
yeah,
got it.
I hadn't heard of anyone else.
Okay, okay, all right. So, I thank you for this, and I think it's very important because I mean, I myself, I try to keep up with things, but I'm also getting an education as to how this machine operates, and it's important for folks to understand how this machine operates because if we're going to, this is you got to be in it to win it, but
Mhm.
if we don't understand how to play the game, and I'm not calling it a game because it's not a game, it's our life, but if we don't understand the rules, the regulations, what it is, then we are at an extreme disadvantage. If you would share a little bit, and this is Harlem Network News, Terri Wisdom, we're winding down, but if you would share a little bit, Senator Catherine Fleming Bruce. And it's a big step. It takes a lot of courage. It takes a big stick. It is mindful, and the phrase is escaping me that our esteemed Congresswoman Shirley Chisholm, what she had to say when she ran. But it takes courage. It takes strength. And I find it amazing that you're stepping out into this venue. What are some of the things you speak about South Carolina as a Republican or a red state,
Mhm.
and trying to change that paradigm, mainly because it also changes the paradigm in the federal government,
Mhm.
in terms of the votes and getting through different things with all of everything we have going at such a time as this. That's a whole conversation that we're
Mhm.
bombarded with every single day. And it's impacting us every single day. It's becoming a reality. The things that were
Yeah.
said are actually being done and impacting people directly. But what does Lindsey Graham, who is Lindsey Graham? What does he stand for? What does he represent? What is he doing for and in South Carolina? And what are some of the things that you plan to do that you think are important to change the paradigm for the people?
Well, I'm gonna go to that right now. I did
All
want to
right.
throw in one quick thing.
Okay. Okay.
Is
Go ahead.
that I have looked at some of the other Senate races and some of the people who were throwing their name in the hat or talking about doing so for 2026.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe that by the primary, if we win the primary and
Mm-hmm.
some of the other folks, there might be 3 Black women
Mm-hmm.
who are going to be going on to the general election.
Okay. And this is in
So
the country for
that's
7
if,
from different
it-
states.
yeah, 3 different states. So South Carolina, I can't remember what the other 2 states are.
Okay.
But
Oh,
they put someone
mm,
possibly forward.
okay.
So there's not a lot of, there's a good number of Black women who have run for House seats. So
Mm-hmm.
you see that, you see very few who are running for the Senate seat. So I just wanted to make that point that,
Mm-hmm.
we again want to make sure that we have, good, strong folks who get through the primary next year and who are in the general election race. So finally, what is it that we want to do differently from Lindsey Graham? And
Okay.
we also want to note that Donald Trump has endorsed Lindsey Graham.
Okay. Got it. Got it.
Okay, so
He's
there's
already
some,
endorsed him. Mhm.
yeah, so there's some at least one Republican who said he wants to run against, and a couple other 2 are thinking about it. But, he's already been endorsed, which means that we expect him to uphold
Mm-hmm.
Trump administration policies
I see.
and to, go along with his nominees and get them through and, support his administrative proposals. And so my role as a candidate is to say, we need to reduce the number of Republicans who are in those Senate seats and increase the number of Democrats or
Okay.
independents or others who are in those seats. And that will enable us to hold the line on some of these things, which right now we can't do. We can get up and make speeches like Cory Booker did, and be at some of the other things, but there's very little we can do to fight back because the numbers are not there.
Okay.
So we want to hold the Trump administration accountable. We want to restore the control of Congress and the Senate over some of these EOs, executive orders. Some of these decisions about gutting federal agencies and tariffs and so forth. We want to resume restoring congressional control over that and break this silence where they're just, doing whatever and fearful of being challenged, fearful of challenging President Trump on that. We're not going to, we're going to be the opposite of that. And we know that gutting these federal agencies is impacting many Black employees, many former Black employees, which means many communities. Our communities are going to be hurt. And I actually know a couple of folks. I know a man who's an activist, and his daughter was one of the people who was a probationary person.
Okay.
And these are the folks who got let go. And
All
so
right.
you have this broad group of people who are all let go at the same time, and they're all trying to find jobs at the same time, and they're trying to get other benefits, and it's hurtful in so many ways, and it doesn't help our government move forward. We want to be unequivocal about protecting Social Security, protecting Medicaid,
Absolutely.
protecting veterans benefits.
Absolutely.
And you see people who put the word out, oh, we're going to protect these things, but they're going along with slashing the number of people who work at the agency, slashing the offices, tens of thousands of people fired from the VA, tens of thousands of people fired at IRS and Social Security offices closing.
Yeah, this is real.
Yeah. So that's what's happening now. So, people trying to access their benefits, they can't even make a phone call anymore. They have to drive to an office. And if you can't drive, or if you don't have the gas to drive 2 hours,
Yeah. In
it's
some instances, yes.
it's going to be
Some
chaotic.
instances.
Yes.
Okay.
So we're also looking at upholding civil rights and due process. And we see in these deportations how due process is being eliminated. I can just say, oh, that guy's an M13 gangster, and we're getting rid of him. And we're not allowing the person to have an attorney. We're not having their day in court to prove that. It's just and it's almost like there've been some children under the age of 10 who've been sent out of the country. So what we have now is a abuse of the fundamental right to due process, which means that all of us are at risk. If you can do that to some people,
Absolutely.
you
can do it
do it to
all.
everybody. Yes.
Right. Yeah. And, in such a melting pot as this country. So thank you for sharing all this information. It's very empowering, and I'm very, very glad that Harlem Network News was able to have you on first. And just a point of information, we know, and this is civics once again, basic civics, the United States has 50 states, and every state has 2 senators, regardless of what their population is or land mass or any of that. Every state has 2 senators. So that means there are 100 senators. Of the 100 senators, and I believe I'm got the correct numbers, there's only 5 Black senators.
Mhm.
Okay, 5 Black. So
Mhm.
do math, you can see what it looks like. So in terms of what the country looks like, and we're not boiling this down to race, but it's very important that we be represented, that
Mhm.
we have a voice. This is not a monolithic society. You know, it's not monolithic. So it's important that there be equal representation to really represent the people. And
Mhm.
here we are, however old the country is, whatever has gone on, whatever has transpired with civil rights and whatever you want to say, DEIs or, you know, whatever. And let's not get it twisted. You know, DEI is really not just about Black people. The
Yeah.
majority of the people who have, you know, really benefited from DEI, you know, which really means diversity, you know, inclusion, you know,
Yeah.
have been white women. And then
Yes.
next, you may have, you know, Hispanic population, or you may have Latinx, if that's, you know, correct. You may have, you know, Asian, Native, you know, but Blacks are at the bottom. So
Yeah.
let's not roll this torch or put these words out that it's about equity for Blacks, and it's about equity. It's equity for
Yeah.
veterans, for people with disabilities, you know, but whatever that list is, Blacks are at the bottom. So let's
Yes.
not throw it out there like it's that. Definitely, you know, as it was, and I'm Terri Wisdom, this is Harlem Network News. When I was growing up, I just know my parents at the dinner table were always telling me, you're Black, you got to be 3 times as good, you know.
Mhm.
And I know everybody heard that at the table.
Oh, yes.
That's still kind of the case, and some in such a time as this. So I want to thank you, Catherine Fleming Bruce, Senator Catherine Fleming Bruce, for stepping out there, having that courage, and be willing to fight that fight. And I want to encourage us to get behind Catherine Fleming Bruce. Harlem Network News, we're standing with you. We know Black media matters, grassroots media matters. That's why we wanted to jump out here and really get this message out and see how we can help you to do the work. Okay, it shouldn't come down to economics. It's got to be work. Obviously, there is some money needed, but we want to support that. And I know that you have reached out to groups like Win with Black Women,
Yes.
as well as I think it's Blacks Lead the Vote, or you know, whatever.
Sisters lead, sisters vote.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, Sisters Lead, Sisters Vote, and I'm sure you will be reaching out to other media, and I think it's very important and very strategic that you're starting now,
Yes.
that you did this before, so you know where the minefields are. That's
Mhm.
very important. You did it before, and you're willing to do it again. So that in itself, really says a lot. And I want to say to all people, we have really, I know people are very disillusioned um,
Yes.
with the process, but that's not a time that you stand down. That is a time to stand up.
Yeah.
So I'm saying all people, you know, Black people, all people, everybody stand up and vote, because it is ridiculous. Like in a city like New York City, where in some instances we've had 17% of the people vote for
Mhm.
local elections. And we got mayoral election coming up, 17% of the people voting. And that actually means that 17% of over 8 million people are deciding what is happening for the rest of us. So don't
Right.
let people decide what's going to happen for you. Get out there and vote. If you got stuff to say, then put it in a vote. And then you got to continue the battle. You got to continue to be an activist. That's how you know, talk is cheap. You got to put out some actions. And, you know, I want to salute Catherine Fleming Bruce, because she has stayed in this. You know, when she lost last time, she didn't go away. We did not see her. She has stayed in this. She's a journalist. So I think that's very important for all candidates, for us to see you, for you to stay in it. I can say it for all the candidates that have been out there. It's very important, where President Barack Obama was president. It's important we still see him, we still hear from him.
Yeah, that's
President
right.
Biden, it's important we see you, we hear from you. Michelle Obama, we see you, we hear from you. VP Kamala Harris, we see you, we hear from you. We can't just see you and hear you when it's the time of the election. You got to stay in it, because that's what it takes. And those that have experienced this and know this, they got to help others. We got to hold the door open. So, Catherine Fleming Bruce, I know you have some other platforms, I think, coming
Yes.
up on Tuesday. If you would share that and let us know about the future platforms that you have coming up, and just give us a closing statement. Thank you. And I admire you so. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much.
Doing this for all of us. I got it. Yes.
Well,
And
I feel the love when I go into the
yeah.
communities and on your show. So thank you so much.
Okay.
I do
Thank you.
want everyone to check out my campaign website, CatherineFlemingBruce.com. So it's all one word, and
Okay.
very easy to find me that way. You can also find me on YouTube, Catherine Fleming Bruce for the United States. I will do an event on Tuesday. I don't have the time yet, but we will do an event on that day. So I'll be sure to share that on my media pages. We're also on Blue Sky. So if you put Catherine Fleming Bruce in Blue Sky, you will find me there. And I'm listed Catherine Fleming Bruce for United States Senate 2026. So we would really like you to follow us on Blue Sky. And we would really like you to donate whatever you can today. And we have an Act Blue. So if you go to Act Blue and you put in Catherine Fleming Bruce, I'll come right up. So be it 5, 10, 15, whatever you can do. I don't know if you heard the story about the crow who was thirsty, and there was a beaker of water with a little bit of water in it in the bottom. So he went and got some stones, and he dropped one stone at a time, one pebble at a time in that beaker, and the water came up and up and up until he could get a sip.
All right.
That's what we need to do with supporting my candidacy. Put in your pebbles, and we will rise to the top. So what I want to say in closing is that we don't need to tell you that we are in a crisis. Everywhere you look, every day, some new onslaught from the Trump administration. And we know that we have to, the thing I want people to remember is that we have to change the math in the US Senate, and we have to change the math in Congress. So the number of people who are Democrats who will vote to protect your rights, protect the organizations that provide you with Social Security check and Medicaid assistance and protect your education, we need those numbers to increase. In the US Senate, they say you need 4 more people, but that's only looking at the blue states. The red states are not off the hook. We have to also work to change those numbers. And Senator Lindsey Graham is endorsed by Mr. Trump. And so he's going to do and support Mr. Trump's programs. So you are going to have to, we're asking you to support our campaign and support other Senate campaigns so that those numbers will be in the affirmative for Democrats. So we get 5 more, 6 more Democrats in the US Senate. And if there can be an additional Black woman because you put in the elbow grease to get another Black woman in there.
Let's go.
Let's do it. We got 2 in there right now. So we could have more if we put in the muscle. So we want to say this is a war we want you to enlist.
Okay.
Want you to enlist. We want you to put that $5 in, go to Act Blue, look for Catherine Fleming Bruce, donate that money, go to the website, catherineflemingbruce.com, and sign up and say, we're gonna use our sadness and our grief about what happened in 2024 and make it motivate us to say, yes, we're gonna continue to stand behind Black women candidates.
Mhm.
And we're gonna make sure that they win by giving them the resources they need. And we're gonna continue to work to oppose any of these policies that harm our communities, that harm our families, that harm our veterans, that harm our students. So it's going to be up to the people, and they're already speaking out. You're already seeing the disapproval numbers of the Trump administration changing. So we're in a positive trajectory. But make sure you add to your protest and add to your anger supporting a Black candidate, supporting a Democratic candidate, supporting a woman candidate.
Thank you. Thank
I'm
you.
all three of them.
Covering those bases. Well,
I've got them covered.
Thank you. And this is really very inspirational for all of us who are doing this hard work and keeping Black media afloat and alive and financed is definitely a war.
Yeah.
And a very important war because that's how people are getting news and information and clarity in terms of what's going on. And Harlem Network News is really dedicated to bring you this. And despite what the naysayers say, and that was really the sermon in our great Abyssinian Baptist church today that produced by one of our pastors, Pastor Shoel, one of our assistant pastors, Dr. Shoel, really to say, know what it is that is your gift, what God or creators or whatever you believe in has deemed you to do, and stand up and do it. Despite, if people are saying, oh, why are you doing this Harlem Network News? You don't have this, you don't have that. You know that that's what you're supposed to do it.
Yeah.
Catherine Fleming Bruce, you know that you're supposed to run for Senate. You ran before. There may be a lot of obstacles against you, but you're ready and you're going to run. And you're going to put them pebbles, keep throwing in that water and bring it in.
That's right.
Let's go. So this is Harlem Network News. We ask you to support us. We ask you to, click and, join our YouTube channel. We ask you to follow us on social media, all of the social medias. We ask you to donate. Donate to us in Zelle. Donate to us in Cash App. You can email us at harlemnetworknews@gmail.com. You can call us directly at 646-261-5397. We are bringing you the content, and we know that it is critical. We are about informing you. We are about engaging you. We are about calling you to action, and we're about the village. We got to come together. It's a powerful thing. And when you look at those economic disparities, when you look at the disparities in the Senate, when this is 100 senators, 50 states, and you got only 5 Blacks, there's a problem. And we can solve that. We can solve that.
That's right.
We can solve that, and we must. So thank you very much. On Harlem Network News, and we will also be letting you know on all our platforms how you can hear Senator Catherine Fleming Bruce on Tuesday. And I know that in the future, she is going to do one of the platforms with Win with Black Women that has been very powerful in organizing Harlem Network News. We are a member, and we're going to bring that to the foreground, as well as the Sisters Lead, Sister Vote. And we got to expand that. Let's get it, because we can. This is our time. So thank you very much and have a great day. And
Oh,
thank you,
thank you. Thank you for being
Senator
here.
Catherine Bruce, for really making this happen. We
Thank you.
really appreciate you. And thank you for being about it. Okay. And thank you for sharing about such a powerful place in our history, South Carolina. We thank you for that. And you take care. Have a great day.
Okay, thank you.
Bye-bye.